What's up, nerds and nerdettes and wee little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big Johnny G, the two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. Thank you very much, everyone. It's really nice to know that you come and you watch the videos, but I just love doing these regardless. So thank you very much, everyone that has been subscribing to the Two Gun Pixie YouTube channel. Very awesome. Just like everyone that's been going to check us out over on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Woo! Loving seeing that. Thank you very much for the patronage that you have given Two Gun Pixie. Well, this is another Midday Monologue Monday. And something has been on my mind because a few weeks back I received something in the mail. Now, this wasn't a surprise, not by the farthest. I knew I was getting it because I ordered it. Now, what makes this special is this has been a grail for me. This has been a grail game. Not in the sense that I've never had it and I want it so badly, but because I did have it. I owned it. And then it got destroyed in a fire. And it's not the easiest thing to find, especially cheap. Well, I did. I found for under $50, which is amazing. And I ordered, and I received Ralph Bakshis Wizards, the role-playing game. Now, this is based on the movie Wizards. Came out like a month to 2 months just before Star Wars dropped. And it was doing pretty good in the box office. Then Star Wars came along. And it kind of got regulated to cult status. That was a game I had when I was a kid. That was one of my youth games. Not my super young games. I got this back in the 90s. But it did get me thinking about RPGs from my youth. And the ones particularly that I miss and why I miss them. Why I thought they made such good games. So we're going to sit down. I'm going to talk to you about a few of the old school classic RPGs. And I think it would be nice if maybe there was an update to a couple of these games. One of them, I think there is. Anyway, let's talk. Let's talk about some old school RPG. What's your favorite old school role-playing game and why? We'll talk about it. All right, I'll see you all down at the table. Oh, so nice that you joined us here. So let's talk about my role-playing games of yesteryear. At least 3 of them I want to talk about that I haven't discussed a lot. These are not going to be TSR games. I've talked about TSR games, classic TSR games, I think enough so far. I wanted to talk about 3 games right now that are not TSR that I also just love, games from my youth. In no particular order. This isn't like number 1, number 2, number 3 best. But I want to continue what I was talking about in the intro, and that's Ralph Bakshis Wizards, because I can't stop thinking about it now. So this was by Wit Publications, and outside of this game, I have never heard of Wit Publications before, and I did not do a search before this shooting to find out. But Wit Publications in 1992 came out with Ralph Bakshis Wizards. And this was heavily and extremely based on the movie of the said name. Takes place during a time period from the intro in the movie right up to a moment before the ending of the film, basically from the moment that the 2 wizards, Avatar and Black Wolf, are battling over their dying mother's body, practically, from the intro backstory of the movie right up to the end for their final battle. So the adventures in the game can take place anywhere in that entire time period. Now, This game was one of the earlier games that I encountered that was a little bit different than Dungeons and Dragons in the sense that it wasn't really so much level based as it was based with the advancement of your attributes and your skills. It was very heavily a skill based system because of that. It used challenges where you had to match the target number, the challenge number. You had to roll that or lower in order to succeed. And it was a D20 game. And you, in order to find your role, I like the way the system combined things. The way you would take like let's say the skill that you're using, climb. Climb is based on dexterity, so you would roll your climb dice and your dexterity dice together, and that would give you the result against your challenge score. And I was so used to the TSR games at the time that was new to me, that was different, and I really enjoyed that system. Something else that was different, this was the very first fantasy game or sci-fi fantasy game that I encountered where you were not given the option of playing a human. Because if you're familiar with the movie, during this time period, there are no more humans. Humans are completely extinct. The ones that did survive the Holocaust, the worldwide global destruction, and lived long enough to see the rise of mutants and fairies were eventually all killed off by the mutants. In Ralph Bakshi's Wizards universe, there literally are no humans, so you didn't have a chance to play them. Instead, you were given the chance to play fairies and elves, gnomes, dwarves. In the supplements, you got to play satyrs, centaurs. It's so very interesting. And another thing I liked about it is they really, from what I understand, and I hope I'm correct on this because this would be a very nice thing to be true, is that they kind of worked with Ralph Bakshi on the creation of this game as far as delving deep into the lore and the history behind the story, as well as history of the story itself. So when they were putting both the core book and the source books, Montagar and Scorch, when they were putting those books together, they were given a lot of information by the creator, by Ralph Bakshi himself, which really brought this game even further more into life. Now, speaking of which, there really were only those two expansions for the game. For the Montagar, which was the source book for the good lands, for the lands that Avatar was from, the lands that elves and fairies and dwarves and everything were living in more or less prosperity, nature. They were living healthy. They had clean water and good food to eat. While the other source book, Scorch, was the mutant land. That was the poisoned land. That was the land that was the most destroyed and still held the remnants of radiation and the destruction of the old world. And both of these books gave you more options for different types of characters to play, as well as more adventures. They had, I believe I remember each of them had a core adventure in them with several adventure seeds for you to build further adventures upon from there. Now, another thing that was new to me at the time in 92 was that this, actually it wasn't new, I had encountered it once or twice before, but as far as a game that I went out and I bought and I learned and I played and I taught to everyone else, this was definitely a first, because this didn't have classes. Not like D&D where you got to play a cleric or a fighter or a wizard. With this, you got backgrounds, I think they were called. So in this game, you maybe have a background as an archer, or maybe an envoy, a hunter, a merchant, minstrel, politician, rancher, things like that. And by choosing a background, you got a list of skills that you were able to choose from. Primary skills, secondary skills, and tertiary skills. And with this, you were going to build the character. And I always enjoyed that character build situation. And one thing that was familiar to me that I enjoyed that this game had was it kept the idea of the critical hits and the critical fumbles or failures And that's with the aces and the blunders in this game. So that was a nice feel to keep. But most of all, I love this game because I love the movie so much, and this was the perfect pickup of the movie. Definitely, if you are a fan of Ralph Bakshi, if you are a fan of the movie Wizards, and if you're a gamer, I'm sorry to tell you, this game is extremely hard to find, but it is so worth it. Now, this next game was the biggest success of a game for me and my friends outside of Dungeons and Dragons. That was a game that came out in 1979, and the second print, which is the one I got, I think it was the second print, I don't think it was the third, but that was in 1981. That was the print I had of it, and that's Villains Vigilantes. That was a game by Jeff D., who I knew almost intimately from the massive amount of artwork that was showcased of his in the early Dungeons and Dragons worlds. His artwork, like many of the original artists for D&D, really helped set the standard of what fantasy art looks like today. But to see that this amazing artist that me and especially my more artistically bent friends like Dennis and Ray loved this guy's art, and see he had his own role-playing game. We were there. I saw it in the store and I bought it on the spot. And I believe that was The Complete Strategist here in New York City. I was down there and I saw it, and it was an instant buy. This was the first game I ever played where in the rules to the game, the character creation setup of the game, right there, it suggested that you base the character that you're creating, the superhero, on yourself. And I still remember sitting in the hallway of the apartment building on the staircase with my buddy Dennis. We were going over the rules, and both our eyes lit up. Because at that time, we had never thought of the concept of playing a game where we were in the game. We were the characters. And that changed so much in our minds. That was a total experience that, to this day, I have not forgotten. So here we have a game that we're playing ourselves, and we're looking at amazing artwork. But we also quickly realized, as we fell in love with this game, our love of other superheroes, such as Marvel and DC characters, we felt didn't have a place. There was a DC game that came out shortly around that time in the mid '80s, and me and the gang, we completely thought it blew. We hated that DC game. The TSR Marvel game, we loved. It tore us away from V&V for a couple of years. But I don't remember what it was. I honestly don't remember what it was. But something brought us back to Villains and Vigilantes. And at that point, I said, listen, if we're going to be back in Villains and Vigilantes, I'm still so intimately familiar with the character creation rules here, guys. You know what we're going to do? We're going to create a whole new campaign. We're going to go into this with a new campaign. And it is going to be a Marvel DC world with Villains and Vigilantes stuff added into it. And that was the first time I ever really started incorporating multiple world systems, so to speak, into one combined shared world. I also love that Fantasy Games Unlimited and Jeff D. and Jack Herman were so supportive of this game. Much like Dungeons and Dragons and some of the other popular role-playing games at the time, they did not short us on modules and source books. One of my favorite modules was the starting one, Crisis at Crusader Citadel. I remember Death Duel with the Destroyers, Island of Dr. Apocalypse. One of my all-time favorites, Dr. DNA. Was it Rise of DNA? Dawn of DNA. Oh, such great modules and great source books too, with additional villains and their stats and their histories all presented there for you with amazing Jeff D. artwork. Oh, I'm getting so sucked into it just thinking about it again. But Mighty Protectors, if you're an old V&V fan, look for Mighty Protectors, because that is Jeff D's new modern Villains Vigilantes game since he got the rights back. So, go check that out. Another nice touch, and I never knew this at the time, this is something that came to me later, was that Jeff D and Jack Herman had started their own comic book company, Eclipse Comics, and they supported the V&V game in it because every issue, or a lot of issues, if not every issue, they had the source material for the V&V game, like mostly like characters, new heroes, new villains. It was amazing. It was amazing that they did that, and they cross-referenced both comics and the games, and they cross-supported everything. Absolutely amazing. Loved Villains Vigilantes. All right, now the other one I want to talk about was this is again by a different company. So I like that. I've talked about RPG games before, and they were almost all exclusively TSR. And now I'm branching out. I like that. So this is a game by West End Games, and I had a few West End games. Actually, everything except for Publications. I had a few Fantasy Games Unlimited. I had a few West End games as well. The one I want to talk about right now, and there's at least two others that I could talk about. The game I'm talking about right now is Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. Which came out in 1986 and 1989. And these games were, one of the creators of the game is a name you might find familiar, and that's Sandy Peterson. He is the original creator of Call of Cthulhu RPG, tons of other games, right up to, right now, I think one of his most popular games still right now is Cthulhu Wars, the board game. This is a hysterical take on the source material, and it is probably the most thematically perfect RPG IP, pickup that I've game translation that I've ever seen. It really is. Like the subtitle for the original Ghostbusters game was "Frightfully Cheerful RPG." Wow, it was. It was a D6 system. And much like Ralph Bakshis' Wizards, it was you didn't go up in a million levels. It was skill based, ability based, as those would increase as you gained experience. I also like the fact I know this was definitely my first time experience this. It might be one of the first times in the board gaming industry, maybe, and that's the first time I ever encountered a dice pool system, where you had a challenge you had to beat, and you had a number of D6s based on the scores in your abilities that you were using against the challenge, and you got to roll your dice pool. And in the dice pool was a ghost die, and that was amazingly fun, so amazingly fun, because the ghost die was bad luck. It was so like it would take away successes from you. But even if you did succeed, and this was the amazingly fun part of it, even if you did succeed, but you rolled a ghost, something bad would still happen. Like, I remember one game in particular where we were going to trap the second of two ghosts, these twin demon ghosts. I can't remember exactly, but we had one trap, and we were going to trap the other one, and I think it was Eric or Tim rolled the ghost die, but they succeeded in trapping the ghost. So the way I, as the ghost master of the game, translated that was that while trapping the second ghost, he stepped on the first ghost trap, releasing the first ghost back out into the world. But there was so much fun. The game completely capitalized on that fun feel of the movie. The whole "he slimed me," the whole "we came, we saw, we kicked ass." It was amazingly fun. Peterson and the others did one of the best jobs ever, just recapturing a genie in a bottle. They definitely made lightning strike twice with the franchise game. Speaking of which, this was also another game where it encouraged you, or at least suggested to you, that you play yourself. So that was amazingly fun, because me and all my buddies obviously are Ghostbuster fans, so the idea that we could be Ghostbusters in our own neighborhood, wow, we ran with that, and that also completely amped up the fun factor in the game. I also like the fact that this was one of the earlier, again, if not maybe first times, I encountered the concept of luck points, which they call brownie points in the game. And they were really cool because you could use them to add to your score on the rolls, or to sometimes even alter rolls, or to save your hide, at the last ditch situation. And it really made it a lot of fun. And between Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 International role-playing games, they had a nice amount of support for it. They had your Ghostmaster screen. There was, I think, 2 modules with the first game, maybe 3, but that was it. And then the second game, there was at least 3, maybe 4 more modules. But one of my favorite expansions came with the second one, and that was Tobin's Spirit Guide, which is one of the occult books that Ray mentions in the movie. So they had a source book for it, and it was so much fun to see that. And I just wish that they had a chance to come out with more real hardcore source material like the Tobin Spirit Guide, but it made it so much fun. And I honestly don't ever remember playing any of these games, and by the end of the game we were all like, these games were really fun. And even though I might not remember each and every adventure, it's the emotions that fuel the memory that I have for these. So much fun. So these are just a few more of, because I've talked about role-playing games in the past, these are a few more role-playing games from my youth. Ralph Bakshi's Wizards by Wit Publications from 1992. Villains and Vigilantes by Fantasy Games Unlimited, published in 1979 and 1981. Currently published as Mighty Protectors by Jeff D. and Jack Herman once again. And Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 International by West End Games, 1986. These are fun games. If you can get your hands on them, or the PDFs of them, I think you're going to have a good time with these games. Go check them out. But like I said in the intro, like I asked in the intro, what are some of your favorite old school role-playing games from the 70s, 80s, or the early 90s? What are they, and why are they your favorites? Let us know. Why don't we start a thread about this? Why don't we start talking about this? Start sharing these ideas and remembering and all these great games from the past. All right, thank you very much for joining me here, everyone. I'm your buddy Big Johnny G for Two Gun Pixie Presents Legendary Gaming. And my friends, I am out of here.